Be'ezras Hashem, today's daf is daf Mem Tes, and we will begin on daf Mem Chesamid Beis by the Gemara. We've started yesterday the Mishnah, and we will continue today with the Gemara from the new Perek Hanizakim. The Mishnah said that we with regards to damages, if someone damaged somebody and he has no money to pay, so the Mishnah said, Shaman law hand be'idius. He pays by paying the best property, his best property. If he doesn't have money to pay, and he's required to pay the victim, so the estimation and the confiscation of his assets is his best piece of land. That's called idis. The best piece of land that he owns will be confiscated or used for the payment of the victim. And the Mishnah ended off, Bipnei Tikkun Oilam. The reason is for the betterment of the world. That's why we require the mazik, the damager, to pay the nizik, the victim, the best of his field. So the Gemara asks a question, Bipnei Tikkun Oilam, because of the betterment of the world, that's why we're going to require that he pay Meitav, the best of his field. Daraisahi, isn't it written in the Torah? The Ksiv says in the pasuk, somebody damages his friend, Meitav Sadeo, the best of your field, or Meitav Karmi, the best of your vineyard, Yeshalim, you have to pay. So how do you reconcile our Mishnah that seems to indicate that it's only a din d'Rabbanan that you pay the best? Amar Abaya explained Loitzricha, our Mishnah is discussing El Rabbi Shmuel. It goes according to the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel. And if our Mishnah is Rabbi Shmuel, we can say that we're going to do something more than the Torah, because the Amar, who said midaraisa b'denizik shaiminim, according bin HaTorah, we estimate according to the best of the victim, of the nizik, the one that got damaged. Kamash malam b'nei tikkun oilam, for the betterment of the world, the Rabbanan made it that shaminim we estimate the best b'demazik, according to the damager. And then we'll give us a moment and let's discuss Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shmuel first. Once we understand what Rabbi Shmuel said, then we'll be able to plug it into the Mishnah. My Rabbi Shmuel, what are we talking about, Rabbi Shmuel? Let us understand Rabbi Shmuel. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa. The Chumash says, Meitav Sadeo, Meitav Karma Yishalim. You pay the best of your field and the best of your vineyard. That's how you should pay when you do damage to somebody. Meitav Shozeo Shanizik or Meitav Karma Shanizik, Div Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel says that you pay the best of the victim and the best vineyard of the victim. Now, what it means, what the Gemara is now understanding, is that if somebody damaged, let's say, one row of somebody's vineyard, right? One row of somebody's vineyard, and it was the cheapest row of his vineyard, of the victim's vineyard, the Chumash says that when the mazik is coming to pay, he should pay with the best row. He should give back the best row of what the victim has. If the victim has a row that's worth more than the one that was damaged, the requirement of the mazik is to pay the more valuable row that the nizik has. So much more valuable, the best of the row of the nizik. Rabbi Akiva says, the Torah did not come to teach you a new novelty. Only when you're collecting for damages, you collect from the best. The Kal v'chomer, certainly if you damage Hekdesh, if you do damage to the Beis HaMikdash. So Rabbi Akiva is a mystery, and the Gemara is going to come back to understand what Rabbi Akiva is saying. But let us see what Rabbi Shmuel says. So the Gemara right away jumps on this. Rabbi Shmuel makes sense. Ochal Shemena, if your cow, let's say, ate one row of the best of the nizik, Mishalim Shemena, so you should pay back that row of the best that you damaged, that your cow damaged. But Ochal Chusha, but if the mazik's cow ate the worst row or the worst land of the nizik, Mishalim Shemena, he should pay the best back. He should pay much more than what he damaged. He ate one row of a weaker land, which is, let's say, is worth 1,000. So you're requiring the mazik to pay the best row, as if $2,000, what the best row would be worth. That doesn't make sense. Mazik should pay more than what they damaged. So Rav Idi bar Avamar, Rav Idi bar Rav Ravini says, Hachaba Mayaskinen. The Chumash is talking about Kagoim, and Rabbi Shmuel is explaining the pasuk is Kagoim she'achla aruga bein ha'arugos. He ate one row between the cow or the ox ate one row between many rows. V'lo yadina, we don't know if he ate the weaker row, if he ate the best row. So the mazik's cow did damage, but we don't know if it damaged his worst row or his best row. So the mishalim if he has to pay the best row, we're gonna go strict on the mazik, and he has to pay the best row. Amar Rava, so Rava said not so fast. If you know for a fact that he ate the worst row, then for a fact you make him pay the worst row, because we're not going when the chumash doesn't make things worse for the matzah. He should pay what he damaged. If he ate if you know for a fact that the cow ate the worst row, so he pays the worst. He pays the lower class row. Hashda deloya diina. Now that we don't know, so you're going to go strict. Mishalim shmeina. He should pay more. Maybe he ate less. If you're trying to extract money from your friend, you have to prove it. And as long as you don't prove for a fact beyond the shadow of a doubt that he ate a shmeina, then we're going to go assume that the animal ate a chusha, the lower value row. So it doesn't make sense. That's what Rabbi Yishmael is trying to say. So Rav Acha Bar Yaakov explained what Rabbi Yishmael is trying to say. You never pay more than what you damage. So what is it? We go to Daf Memtes Amar Aleph. And here we're talking about Kegoin Shahois Idis Denizik Kisi Buris the Mazik. The example is like this. The mazik has three fields. Idius, Baininus, Ziburis. Okay, let's assume. But the Ziburis of the mazik is a wealthy guy. So his Ziburis, his worst land, is equal to the best land of the victim, of the nizik. So he has his worst land is like the nizik's best land. So Kegoin Shahoisi Idis the nizik, Kiziburis the mazik. That's what the machlekes is. The best of the nizik is equal to the worst land of the mazik. So when he's paying karka, and you're paying exactly karka, like we explained yesterday, if you're going to pay karka best of, you're never going to pay more. You're just going to pay less of the size of the field, but you're never going to pay more in value. So the answer is: do we force the mazik now to, when he wants to pay from his best? Rabbi Shmuel holds b'denizik shaiminim. We estimate that you pay according to the value of the nizik. So therefore, the mazik can pay his own ziburis, which is equal to the best of the nizik. Rabbi Kiva b'demazik shaiminim. Rabbi Kiva says we force the mazik to pay. If he's going to pay in karka, in karka, he has to give up his best, even if he's a rich guy, he has to give up his best land to pay for the damages. So the Gemara says like this: my time in Rabbi Shmuel, what's the reason Rabbi Shmuel? So the answer is Nemra Soda Lamata. It says Soda, the field, when it comes to the payment. The Nemra Soda Lamala. And when it's talking about the scenario of the damage, the Torah also uses the field. Ma Soda Hamur Lamala. The Soda, the field that it says above, refers to the field. Whose field? The nizik of the victim. Afsada hamur lamata. So also, when the Torah says you should pay the best field, it's referring to the nizik's best field. So if the ziburis of the nizik is worth like the idius of the mazik, you'll pay if the ziburis of the mazik is worth like the idius of the nizik, the mazik will pay from his ziburis. Rabbi Kiva holds no. Meitav Sodeo Yishalom. He should pay the best of his field. So if you look at the Chumash, his field, his refers to the person who's doing the paying. The Heich to Komishalom, the one that's paying, has to pay from his best. So if the mazik is a rich person, he has to pay from his idius, even though it's much more worth than the idius of the nizik. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Shmuel, the pasuk seems to be more in line with what Rabbi Akiva is saying, that it's referring to the mazik. So the Gemara says, Ahani Gzeir Shava, Ahani Kra. Rishmuel says, you're right. The pasuk does have, we're not going to take the pasuk out of context, but we also have a Gzeir Shava that it means the nizik. Ahani Gzeir Shava, the case of the Gzeir Shava is like what we said, that if the idius of the nizik is worth like the ziburis of the mazik, so then the mazik will pay from his ziburis. But ahani krab, the pasuk will tell you that sometimes the mazik will pay more than his ziburis. For example, the islay the mazik idius ziburis. If the mazik has idius and ziburis, okay, he has the best and ziburis. The ziburis today, his worst loishavi kidis the nizik is not equal to the best of the nizik. The nizik's idius is somewhere in between the idius and the ziburis of the mazik. So let's say it's somewhere in between, like over here. That's where the nizik's field, the best of the nizik's field. In that case, you can't tell the mazik to get away with ziburis because the nizik has an idius that's worth more than the ziburis of the mazik. Therefore, we go strict on the mazik, and he's going to have to pay from his own idius, which is worth more than the idius of the nizik. And that's what the pasuk is saying. The mishalim the ziburis today lo shavik idius nizik. His ziburis is not worth like the idius of the nizik. The mishalim le memetav, so he plays from the best of his field. So basically, let us go back to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said that the nizakin, someone who does damage, he has to pay from the idius because it's the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan wanted to make the world a better place. So what does it mean? The Chumash says you pay from Meitav. The answer is our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Ishmael, and really, strictly speaking, you would in the case where the ziburis of the mazik equal to idius of the nizik, the mazik would only have to pay his ziburis. You only go on the idius, you only estimate according to the value of the nizik. Comes along the Rabbanan and said, although that's Minat Torah, what Rabbi Shmuel understands the pasuk, but we're going to go strict and say we're going to go like Rabbi Akiva's understanding of the Torah, which means you're going to require the mazik to pay from his own best. Why? Because we want people to be very careful, even if you're a rich person, be very careful to not to damage anyone, even to not to damage even somebody who's of lesser economic class than you are. And therefore, as a deterrent, we're going to say that if something of yours damages somebody else's, you're going to have to give up your best in order to make payment. That's the tikkun olam that the Mishnah is discussing. Now the Gemara explains, just to clean up, what is Rabbi Akiva? How does Rabbi Akiva argue? As we said before, the Rabbi Akiva's understanding is that you always pay Minat Torah. You pay the idius of the mazik, of the damager. He has to pay from his best. But then Rabbi Akiva adds, and that's what he says. The pasuk is talking about only the one who is paying, and we're coming to collect payment. We collect from his idius. The kal v'chomer, and we'll make a certain that certainly if you damage hegdish, you have to pay from your idius. So the Gemara says, "My kal v'chomer hegdish." What does it mean, a kal v'chomer to hegdish? That if you damage hegdish, you have to pay. Ilay, would you say, that a man's ox gored the ox of hegdish, an ox belonging to the Beis Hamikdash, right? So the Gemara says, wait a second, you were going to go very lenient. The Torah says only if you damage your friend's field, you have to pay. And your friend's ox, but not if you damage the ox belonging to hegdish. So you don't have to pay. So that's fascinating. So if a person's ox damages an ox belonging to the Beis Hamikdash, there's no payment. You don't have to pay back. So that cannot be talking about what Rabbi Akiva is saying, that if you're paying hegdish, you'd have to pay back from your idius. You don't even have to pay at all. Ella, what is this referring to? Ella oimer, when you say you commit to donate a mana for bedek habayis, for the betterment of the Beis Hamikdash. So you promised a mana, a coin, a certain amount of money. So now you owe this money to the Beis Hamikdash. So the collector could come and can take from your best field. If you have no cash to pay to make due on the commitment, the treasurer of the Beis Hamikdash could come confiscate your best assets, your best piece of land. Says the Gemara, Lo Yehei Ela Bal Choiv. Wait a second. At worst, it's like somebody you're in debt to hegdish. Ubal Choiv, when it comes to collecting a debt, Dina Bebenis, you don't have to give your best land to make due on your debts, your outstanding debts, you could get away with giving the middle land that you have, the middle value property that you have, not your best, not your worst. So why are we going to say that for Hegdish you have to pay your best? That's the Kal V'choima. Baal Choiv Shakal B'Idias Kinizokin. Baal Choiv, if you're a Baal Choiv to Hegdish, if you owe money to Hegdish, you'll pay Idias, just like a Mazik has to pay Idias. So if you're a Baal Choiv to Hegdish, you also have to pay Idias. So the Gemara says, Ikal Mechrach, I will argue and ask the question. My Baal Choiv, when you owe a regular a Baal Choiv, Shekaim, if a regular Baal Choiv, someone's in debt to somebody else, to another person, the reason he pays, he's even more stronger, because whether he owes money to somebody else or he damaged something to somebody else, you have to pay money. But when you refer to the halachas of Hegdish, it's weaker, its power when it comes to damages. You don't have to pay Hegdish if you do damage to Hegdish. So therefore, if you owe money to Hegdish, so since owing something to Hegdish should be on a lesser level than owing money to somebody else. So we're not going to make it more that you have to pay Idias when you owe money to Hegdish. You should only have to pay Baininus, at the very least, pay Baininus, but not Idias. So what is Rabbi Akiva saying? That when you're paying Hegdish, you have to pay your best. So the Gemara says, La'olam, really, the Hegdish. Your ox gored the ox of Hegdish. Rabbi Akiva Rabbi Akiva has an opinion like Rabbi Shimon ben Nasiya. Tanya, we learned to the Brisa. Rabbi Shimon ben Nasiya says, guess what? That when the Torah says that the damages are, that the Torah discusses the goring of your friend's ox, that's where the Torah makes a differentiation. If it's the first time, you can get away with paying half the damages. If it's the third time, you have to pay full damages. But that's what Rabbi Shimon ben Nasiya says. That is what the Torah is exempting. Only when you damage your friend, then we have leniencies if it's the first time. But if you're damaging Hegdish, just the opposite. You'll have to pay both. Whether it's the first time, whether it's the third time, certainly you're going to always pay full damages. The Tanya we learned to Rais or if Hegdish damages you, then Potter, Hegdish doesn't have to pay. If the Beis Hamikdash's ox damages the ox of a plain person, Beis Hamikdash doesn't have to pay. But if that ox belonging to a plain person, that damages the ox belonging to Hegdish, whether it's the first time, whether it's the third time, you have to pay Nezek Shalom. So therefore, that is the Chiddush of Rabbi Akiva. Kal v'choymer lehegdish, Rabbi Akiva says, that you always have to pay, just like a damager who damages a plain person pays from this best of his field. So also, if you damage Hegdish, certainly you're going to have to pay from your best field, because Hegdish has laws that are much stringent. That with regards to when one ox gores another ox, there's no leniency accorded to if it's the first time. So the halachas of Hegdish are more stricter than the halachas of a Hedyot. So Rabbi Akiva says certainly you'll pay Idias as payment to Hegdish. So now the Gemara understood right now. The Gemara just got through stating that Rabbi Akiva says two statements. One statement is that when you damage your friend, you go b'damazik shaminin. We look at the Idias belonging to the damager. The second thing is that when you damage Hegdish, you have to pay Idias. Of course, Idias damazik. So the Gemara says maybe, since Rabbi Akiva was speaking cryptic tones, maybe Rabbi Akiva is just arguing on one statement of Rabbi Shmuel. Maybe Rabbi Akiva will agree with the nizik shaymina. You always go look after the best of the nizik, not the best of the mazik. And Rabbi Akiva is just saying one thing, that Rabbi Shmuel will hold if you damage Hegdish. Rabbi Shmuel will hold like Rabbanan that you don't have to pay. Rabbi Akiva says, I argue and I hold you do have to pay when your ox damages Hegdish. Not only that, you'll pay from your best. So that's Gemara's question. How do you know for sure? They're arguing in the case with it. idius of the nizik is equal, the best of the nizik is equal to the worst of the mazik. That's the argument. Rabbi Kiva says you pay b'da mazik, and Rabbi Shmuel says you pay b'da nizik. Dilma de kuliyal b'da nizik shamin. Everybody holds you can get away with paying the best of the nizik, which means that the mazik will have to pay his ziburis, because it's equal to the best of the nizik. They're arguing what Rabbi Shimon ben Asya and Rabbanan are arguing. Rabbi Kiva holds like Rabbi Shimon ben Asya that if your ox damages hegdish, you have to pay. Rabbi Shmuel holds like Rabbanan that if you damage the ox of hegdish, you don't have to pay. Maybe that's the only argument between Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shmuel. So Mar says, what did Rabbi Kiva start off his statement? Rabbi Kiva started off his statement and said, Loi bo hakosiv, right? Rabbi Kiva says, Loi bo hakosiv, el ligbos nizakim and edis. Kiva says, you're misinterpreting the pasuk. So why did Rabbi Kiva, if Rabbi Kiva agreed the way Rabbi Yishmael interpreted the pasuk, so why did Rabbi Kiva make that statement that the pasuk is not the way you're interpreting it? I have another way to interpret it. Void, my kal v'chomer leheglish. If Rabbi Kiva agrees that b'denizik shaminim, so then we're always going lenient by a mazik, that we're going to let him get away with the idios of the nizik, with the idios of the nizik by paying his ziburis, by paying his own mazik ziburis. So then, what are you making a kal v'chomer? So certainly a kal the Rabbi Kiva seems to imply that from there we're going to drive a kal v'chomer lehegdish. But you're going lenient on the mazik. So how are you saying now you're going strict on the mazik? V'oid ha'amar Rabashi says, and this blows it all away. We go to Amud Beis, there is a brisa. Tanya Behedya, we learned in a clear brisa that clearly outlines the machlokes between Rabbi Kiva and Rabbanim. Meitev Sodei, the pasuk says, Meitev Karma Yishalim. The Torah tells you should pay the best. So Meitev Sodei shall nizik. You pay the best belonging to the nizik. Meitev Karma Yishal Mazik. Meitev Sodei shall nizik. Meitev Karma shall nizik. The Rabbi Shmuel. So Rabbi Shmuel says you always look at the nizik. Rabbi Kiva says, Meitav Sadeh Shemazik, Meitav Karma Shemazik. They're arguing on the best of the, he says that the pasuk means that the best of the mazik and the best vineyard of the mazik. So we clearly see that they're more than just arguing about hegdish, they're actually arguing what the translation of the pasuk Meitav Sadeh means. According to Rabbi Shmuel, it means the best of the nizik. In certain situations, you'll pay the best of the nizik if the mazik has ziburis which equals to the best of the idios of the nizik. That's Rabbi Shmuel's opinion. Rabbi Kiva says no. In all situations, the mazik is going to have to pay from his own best, and therefore that was the end of the Gemara. The end of the Gemara concluded that our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Shmuel, and really what the Mishnah means to say is that midar d'oraisa you would go by the nizik. Comes along Rabbanim if they take an oilam to make people more careful and to be a deterrent, so that they are more conscious that their ox should not do damage. They made it that if damage does happen, you would have to pay from your own best, the beitav of the mazik. That is the tikkun oilam that the Mishnah is talking about. Ravina says, La'olam masnisin Rabbi Kiva. Really, our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Kiva. Your question is, but the Torah says that you pay the best and the best of the mazik. So where does the Rabbanan fit it in? Really, Minatori you pay mid mazik. So where does tikkun oilam fit in? So the answer is tikkun oilam means we're trying to understand what the reason why the Chumash says b'de mazik shaminim. And sometimes tikkun oilam is an explanation of why the Chumash demanded b'de mazik, but that we pay the best of the mazik. Rab Shimon, the Dorish time of the crop. Rab Shimon always tries to find the reasoning why certain dinim apply, and if there's a nafkamina, then where the reason of the Chumash doesn't apply, we will change the halacha. For example, the Torah tells us you're not supposed to take a mashkin if you lend money to an almana. So Rabbi Shimon says, what's the reason? Because sometimes you have to return the mashkin at night, and every night you're going to have to return the mashkin because let's say it's a clothing that she uses at night, which you're required to return to the lender, to the borrower. So here's a man going to return clothing to the lady at night. It will bring a shemra, bad name. People will say, oh, he's visiting her for znus. Comes along Rabbi Shimon and says, because if that's the reason of the Chumash, if you lend a rich lady money and she doesn't need the item returned every night, technically you're allowed to take a mashkin in that case. So Rabbi Shimon tries to understand reasonings of the Chumash. So now our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Shimon, trying to explain why did the Chumash say, why did the Torah say b'demazik sheminim, that we estimate that the best of the mazik. My tam nizakin shomer lehem be'idiyus. What is the reason why the Chumash says that the nizakin pays from the idiyus? And they take an oilam for the betterment of the world. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa, Shimon oimib, and they ma omru. Why did the Torah say ha nizakin shomer lehem be'idiyus? That's an omru means people said, but it means why did the Torah say ha nizakin shomer lehem be'idiyus? That nizakin pays from idiyus, from the best. Hagazlon, because people who steal. For people who rob people, even though they actually pay for the item, but they forced people to sell items to them when the owner of the item doesn't really want to sell. So that's like a type of greed. So because of these gazlonim and chamsonim, a person is it's a deterrent. The Torah says that loma ani goyim loma ani chamis. Why will I steal? Why will I rob somebody? If I'm caught and found guilty, the next day, Bezdin Yarden the Nechsai, Bezdin are going to come into my possessions. The night list, they're going to take Sadinashali, my best field. And the Bezdin is going to hang itself and rely on what the Torah writes, that if you do damage, you pay the best of the field and the best vineyard belonging to the mazik. Lefichach amru. That's why the Chachamim explain hanizakim shomer lehem be'idiyas, that the Chumash said that you pay the best of the mazik is a deterrent, so people should not damage people. People shouldn't be careful before they steal and rob people, because if they're found guilty in Bezdin, we're going to repossess their own best land. So therefore, it's a deterrent. That's the explanation of why the Chumash says Hanizakin shomer lehem be'idiyus, and that's what the Mishnah means. But they take an oilam. The Hashem said that a damager should pay the meitav because taking oilam that betters the world. That slows down the crime rate. Now the Gemara explains another part of the Brisa of the Mishnah. Why does the Torah say Bal Choiv, if you owe somebody money, you have to pay bebenis, your middle of the road land? Really, why can't you get away with ziburis? So Chachamim, that's min Torah. You're supposed to get a ziburis, but Rabbanan said that you should pay more than what the Chumash requires. Chachamim says you should pay more. So now the question is, why did they not say that somebody who borrows money should be so grateful when he can't pay back, he should have to be forced to give up his idiots, his best property? Why do they only force him to give up his middle of the road property? So the answer is because you can have loan sharks. A man will see to his friend, he has a nice field, a beautiful house. The young man, he's going to say, I'm going to be a loan shark. I'm going to jump and lend him the money. And I know that he's not going to be able to pay back. So I could foreclose on his property, foreclose on his field. Therefore, Chachamim said, that's not true. That he's not going to give you his best field. If he has something of lower value, he's going to give you, you're not for sure getting the best that he has. You're only going to get his medium, the one that he has in the middle. So that's why Chachamim didn't say that you're going to get the best. So now the Gemara says, if that's the case, let us not let a lender collect from the bain in his property. He should be only collecting from the worst property. So the answer is, Im came ata noel dallas lifnei loman. Then you're closing off the doors for borrowers. In other words, you're closing down the capital markets, because if a person lends money knowing that if in case the borrower can't pay, the best you're going to foreclose on is his worst field. Nobody wants to foreclose on the worst field because it's trouble selling it. So therefore, Chachamim said you can't go min Torah, do what the Torah says, and only allow the Bal Choiv to repossess the worst land, because then nobody's going to want to lend anymore. So therefore, they made a balance and said that you should be able to repossess his medium field, not his best, because we're concerned that you're going to loan shark him, but not his worst either, just something in the middle of the road. One more piece of the Gemara. Ksubas Isha, Biziburas. The Ksubas Isha pays the worst land. When a person pays his wife for the ksuba, it's for the worst land. Now, there are two ways you pay your wife: when you divorce, and when you pass on, it's from the estate, but it's from the worst piece of land that he owes. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, you pay the middle of the road. You pay the middle property. So the question is, why did they allow, say that Ksubas Isha only collects from the worst land that her husband has for Ksuba? Because to get into the marriage, more so than a desire that a man desires to get married, Isha rightly not say. Fact of life is that the woman wants more to get married than the man wants to marry. And therefore, since to get into this relationship, we want to make it more incentivized for the man, we say that, listen, if it doesn't work out, you're not going to lose your best field. She's not going to be able to sue you for your best field. She'll only be able to repossess from you your worst field. So that solves that problem. Davar acher, but another reason, isha yoitzer rutzayna v'shloi rutzayna. The ish ena metzia el rutzayna. That a woman could receive a divorce, whether she wants it, whether she doesn't want it. But a man ena metzia el rutzayna. He doesn't divorce his wife only if he wants it. Only if he wants it. So it's up to him to decide a divorce. So the Gemara doesn't understand. What does that mean? It means that a man has more of a power to divorce his wife than a wife has a power to request a divorce. So if that's the case, since the woman is weaker than the man, we should make it that the woman should, to compensate for her, we should require her that for the ksuba she should be allowed to collect on idios. So what the best? My dava, how does this fit into the train of thought of the brisa? So the Gemara says, "V'chitayim." The brisa means like this. It's another totally different explanation, nothing to do with explaining why ksubas ishis bizburas. It's explaining something else. The v'chitayim. Let us explain. Why don't we say that just like a man gives his wife a ksuba, if she's demanding to get divorced, she should have to pay some money to the man. When he's divorcing her, the Rabbanan required that he has to pay a ksuba. Ki nafke ihi name, when she's requesting the divorce, let's require that he should have to pay, she should have to pay him a ksuba. Let's say she says, she can't live with the guy. She finds him repulsive. So she's demanding a divorce, and Bezdin follows her request and forces him to give a divorce. So she should have to pay money for that divorce. The answer is because we still need his consent. And therefore, since it's with his consent, we're not going to require her to pay money. The Tashma, a woman can get divorced whether she consents or not consent. The husband could give her a divorce no matter what. Well, a man cannot divorce his wife only if he consents. Efshab, and since in all situations the mashila begita, he could hold back the get, and because he could potentially hold back the get, so we're not requiring her to pay for such a get, and therefore there is no takana, there's no edict regarding her paying him a ksuba. Only he pays a ksuba, not the other way around. So this davar has nothing to do with the statement before, which we just said the reason ksubas isha is biziburis because the man doesn't really want to get married. So to incentivize him, we say that if some things don't work out, you're only going to lose your ziburis. Ksubas isha biziburis. The ksubas isha pays ziburis. One more piece. Alma mazuperate Rab Nachman. Rab Zutra said, the son of Rab Nachman, he said, Loi Amran, this was not said, El meyaspe. Only if you're coming to collect from Yisayimim, the woman, that means she lost her husband and she's collecting her ksuba from the estate, then she collects ziburis. But if she was divorced and she's collecting from him personally, the beinish she can collect from his baininess type of field. So the Gemara asks, Miyasni, if she's collecting from the estate, what's the novelty? Ksubas isha b'ziburis, that she collects from the worth. My area ksubas isha, what's the novelty that a ksubas isha collects ziburis? afila kol milinami, any type of somebody who's owed money, and he's trying to collect from the orphans, he collects ziburis. The Tanah, we learned in the Mishnah, you cannot get paid back from the possessions of the Yisayim, element is ziburis. You can only collect from ziburis. So if the ksubas isha, if a woman's collecting from the estate of the Yisayim, of the orphans, of course she's going to collect from ziburis. So what's the novelty? Elalav minei. So the novelty is that not only does she collect ziburis if she's collecting from the Yisayim, but ksubas isha ziburis is if she is collecting from him himself. That means she got divorced. She's collecting from him himself. The chiddush is that he pays with ziburis. So the Gemara says, Lo'olam, really our Mishnah is miyasmi. The Mishnah is saying that the only time you pay ksubas isha is from ziburis is only if you're collecting from the orphans. But if you're collecting from him, you pay beinanis. But so what's the novelty? Ksubas isha itzrachale. Ksubas isha, I would have another novelty chiddush that the Mishnah is telling you that the ksuba pays from ziburas. Kasalta daikamir, I would think mishum we want women to be attracted to get married to men, even though it works both ways. That means that if a woman, since she doesn't have the requirement of pruruvu, she's not going to be want to get married to men. Because at the end of the day, at best, she's going to get a ziburis type of property. So I might think that when she's collecting from the Yisayim, she should also be able to collect from Beinis. Akilu Rabbanan Gaba, and the Rabbanan were lenient by her and say that she should collect from Beinis. So that's what the Mishnah is saying, that if she's collecting from him, yes, Beinis, but if she's collecting from the Yisayim, then we're not going to go lenient on her, even though there's a good reason to go lenient on her. We're not going to go lenient because at the end of the day, she's collecting from the Yisayim, and Kamash Merlan that she's going to only collect from Ziburas. One last piece. Amar Rava says, Tashma, come in here. Meir says, Ksubas Isha Bebenis. A ksuba, when you collect the Ksubas Isha, it's Bebenis. Meman. What is Rabbi Meir saying? You collect Benis from Ksubas Isha. If it's from Yisayim, from the orphans, lastly, Rabbi Meir had it from doesn't Rabbi Meir hold that if you're collecting from the Yisayim, you should get ziburis? So why does Rabbi Meir say Ksubas Isha Bebenis? Elalaf must be Rabbi Meir was talking about that she's collecting from him. She got a divorce. Minei, from him. And only Rabbi Meir holds you collect Beinanis. Michlal, the Rabbanan Savri Beziburis. Rabbanan hold that when you collect from him, a woman will collect from Ksubas Isha from Ziburis. So how could Mar Zutra say that everybody agrees when you're collecting Ksubas Isha from him, from the husband himself, you collect it from Beinanis? And says the Gemara Loi. Really, Rabbi Meir, who says Ksubas Isha is Bebeinanis, is also talking about Yisayim, from your collecting. Your question is, you don't collect from Yisayim from Beinanis. The Mishnah says when you collect from the possessions of Yisayim, you collect only from Ziburas. So Rabbi Meir has this leniency. We want, because of Ksubas Isha, Mishum China. We want a Ksubas Isha that women should want to get married to men. So therefore, Rabbi Meir says in all scenarios, we're going to make a Ksubas Isha Bebeinanis. Whether she's collecting from Yisayim, whether she's collecting from him himself, certainly it's Beinanis. And that's the Chiddush of Rabbi Meir. But to make women attracted to men. But according to Rabbanan, it's only when you collect from him himself, then you pay Beinanis. But when she's collecting from Yisayim, since it's Yisayim, the Rabbanan will hold you collect from Ziburas. But both Rabbi Meir and both Rabbanan both agree to Mar Zutra's idea that when a woman's collecting Ksubas Isha from him, she will collect from his Beinanis. Okay, Be'ez Hashem, we'll stop right here.